Welcome to the JournalismAI Festival. Welcome back, I should say. It's great to see you all for session 16, I think, of this festival. I'm really excited to be introducing this specific session. I'll tell you why in a second. If you don't know me yet, that would be strange. My name is Mattia, and I'm the project manager of JournalismAI. And with my colleagues Lakshmi and Sabrina and Charlie, I've been hosting the festival since Monday this week. So we had lots of sessions, fantastic program that you can review online. I'll tell you how in a moment. And today we're here to almost close the program. This is the second to last session of the week, and we're doing the festival as a celebration of the most exciting developments at the intersection of journalism and artificial intelligence. We are the JournalismAI team at Polis, the journalism think tank of the London School of Economics and Political Science, and JournalismAI is funded by the Google News Initiative. JournalismAI does a lot of different things, from research reports to training programs and online courses. We manage a collaborative initiative since last year, and you will hear from some of the participants in this very session and so much more. And you can find out everything about what we do at journalismai.info, which is our website. And in there, I especially encourage you to check out the AI Journalism Starter Pack, which we published a couple of weeks ago, which is a great introduction. I'm biased, but it is a great introduction to the topic of journalism and artificial intelligence. To enjoy the festival, or what's left of it, to the fullest, use the live chat here on YouTube, where you're listening us, to ask your questions to the speakers. Don't wait to the last minute to drop your questions in the chat, and we will save them and look at them and get to them during the Q&A. And join the community on Telegram at t.me/journalismai. We have more than 500 people from across the world sharing and learning together about AI in journalism. And if you talk and share what you're learning about from the festival on social media, please use the hashtag JournalismAI. You can check the program at journalismaifestival.com and all the videos of the previous sessions at YouTube/PolisLSC. And the last thing, if you don't receive our newsletter yet, you really should. Over than the festival, we always send a newsletter monthly with loads of interesting links and stories and our activities at the intersection of journalism and AI. My last recommendation, as always, be open, be curious, be kind. We're here to learn together. AI is a complex topic. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So be kind, be open, and be curious to learn from the speakers. Ask them questions, and let's continue this learning journey together. Right before I get to the session of the hour, I just want to remind you of the final session of the program, which is coming up in, oh my God, a couple of hours, I think. I'm lost about what time it is, but at 2:30 p.m. GMT, so London time, we're going to close the program of the JournalismAI Festival with a forward-looking session about the future of AI in journalism with Jeremy, Agnes, Abhishek, and our director, Charlie, moderating the session. But for this very session that we're here right now to listen to and that I'm really excited to introduce, we have a great lineup of speakers. The title of the session is Facts at Your Fingertips, Automating the Information Modules. I'm really pleased to introduce Jane Birch from BBC News. Jane has been one of the lead partners of our JournalismAI Collab challenges this year. So she worked very closely with our participants throughout the year. She's also the mastermind behind the wonderful title of this very session. So kudos to you, Jane, for that. And she will be introducing you to the speakers in a moment. So Jane, thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for all your support to JournalismAI, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's really, really good to be here. And I have to, you probably guessed, given that I came up with facts at your fingertips with the alliteration, I'm a journalist. We love alliteration. It's the first time that I've been involved in the collab. And this past 6 months has been really actually inspirational for me. As a journalist, you hear a lot about journalism in crisis. You know, we are metaphorically and actually sometimes physically under attack as a profession. But what I've had in the last 6 months is an experience of coming together with a group of people, really talented people, who have been working so hard to use automation to improve journalism, to improve what we offer to audiences. And obviously, facts are the lifeblood of journalism. And for me, they're one of those kind of modules of journalism that if we can automate them, there's a sort of win-win here. It's a win for the journalists because it helps our workflow, but it's absolutely a win for audiences. I know from my work over the last 12 months, audiences are hungry for facts and information. They want journalists to help them navigate complex topics like climate change, like the pandemic. So using automation in this way seems like such a fantastic and fundamental way in which we can improve our journalism. So we have two teams that we're going to hear from. We're going to hear from a partnership in Germany, but we're actually going to start in Norway. So I'm going to hand over to Ketil and Gaute, who are from Media City Bergen and also from Factiverse. So I will let them talk to you about the micro fact box.
Thank you, Jane. It's such an honor to be both part of this project, the collab, and also this presentation. Media City Bergen is an innovation cluster in Norway. We have over 100 organizations as members, and we have been accepted into the collab as a consortium. We brought with us 4 of our member companies: Factiverse, Dagens Næringsliv, which is the financial newspapers, and then the regional newspapers Stavanger Aftenblad and Fædrelandsvennen. We have been tackling a specific challenge in this collab. The overall goal of the collab was to use modular journalism to solve the challenge of reaching underserved audiences. We have been focusing specifically on one audience that is hard to reach and also underserved, namely the young readers. And in our case, that's the readers between 18 and 30 years old. We have been working a lot of the 6 months with distilling the challenge we're going to solve, and we finally landed on focusing on using facts as a way to serve these audiences. So if we just go back to the actual challenge on the last slide, the challenge we distilled was that we believe that young news consumers might lack knowledge about concept that's often taken for granted by journalists, and that makes it hard for them to get into the news world with a lot of assumptions being made of what you're supposed to know in advance before reading a certain story. So after a lot of work together as a group, that was what we landed on. And to go back to the green light, the proposed solution idea, we believe that using fact boxes, or what we call micro fact boxes, we might be able to bridge the knowledge gap for the consumers that might need it. So Gaute, will you take us through the actual solution that we've been working on?
Definitely, Ketil, and really good to be here. So my name is Gaute, and I'm from Factiverse. So we've been dawdling around this solution idea for quite a few months, and together with Fædrelandsvennen and Frode Nordbø, he prototyped the first version where we look at how could we embed facts into news articles in a better way than what we've seen earlier. And our assumption was also that we don't want the reader to actually jump out of the article if they need to know, for example, a definition of a word or an organization, etc. So that was one of the kind of key takeaways when we worked with the prototypes, is like, how can we make sure that the reader don't have to exit or open 5 new tabs to actually get an understanding of the concepts that they are reading about. And we've been developing our prototype on the go, and also been doing some testing sessions that we'll tell you a little bit more about later. But we got some really good help from Dagens Næringsliv and Alexander Prestmo, who create the second prototype that you can see on the right. I'll show you a short video of how it works as well. And this is basically for the reader side of our service. So bear with me. There's sorry.
No, sorry. Please go ahead, Gaute.
Yeah, so this in Norwegian, but I'll try to give you a short explanation. So what you see here is a kind of an explanation box where you, as a reader, you can answer how much explanation do you want or do you need for this specific topic. And then you can see, based on your input, how is your understanding of this topic. You get inline definitions of different words. Here we have the Paris Agreement. What is it really? And here we connected this to Store Norske Leksikon, a huge lexicon in Norway. And this is the prototype that we also did some testing on with good results that we'll share with you a bit further. But obviously, this is what you saw now is kind of the reader side of things. And we need to find a way to both make it easier for the reader, but also for the journalists. Because obviously, if you were to define all the words in your text, that would be a really hassle for you as a journalist. So what we're working at the last time is actually to have a entity extraction front end where you can actually send in your text, as you can see on the left, submit it, and then get suggestions back on your text, which words could be highlighted and explained with microfacts. Here the journalists can also edit or add their own facts. And this is kind of the next step of the project would be to build more intelligence into this.
We should just also say a little bit, like you mentioned, Gaute, about the research phase, because like a lot of product development, we start with some assumption, and then we work to either validate or invalidate those assumptions. So what we did while working on the technical prototype was test with actual users from the target group. We first did a really low-tech test where we printed 3 articles from Dagens Næringsliv, gave it to a panel to read, and asked the panel to outline any difficult concepts. The results were really interesting because there were really few of these panel participants who highlighted anything. We were a bit disappointed, obviously, because we had a really strong belief that words might be difficult. What we later found out was that we might have had some issues with our sampling, because all of these panelists were actual subscribers of the newspaper, and probably not representative of the full age group. So next step was to user test the prototype to see if the concept would resonate with actual people from the group, and it did. So we did the final test a week ago, and feedback so far is good from readers that this gives them some assistance in getting into the text. And also something we will work on refining and see how we can take it further. Gaute?
Yeah, so exactly that's what we want to do. And obviously the JournalismAI Collab has been really invaluable, both for Factiverse as a startup, but from the other members also been providing so much value into this collaboration. So we definitely, it doesn't end here. We definitely want to see how we can build more intelligence, making it easier to use both for the reader, but obviously also for the journalists who are short on time and might not always have the time to actually create manual fact boxes as they go.
Finally, we should give a shout out to the full team that's been working together for the last 6 months. So we have Frode and Mylin from Federlandsvennen. We have Rolf from Stavanger Aftenblad, Maria and Gaute from Factiverse, Ingeborg and Alexander from Dagens Næringsliv, and Anne and myself from Media City Bergen. So thank you to everybody, and thanks to the organizers, Mattia and team, and our mentors for making this possible. It's been a great experience.
Thank you. And we'll have a chance to talk a bit more, I think, about the testing that you did. We can see from the fact that you had such a large team from different media organizations that gave you an opportunity to test things in a way that might not have been available to everybody. But before we go back to you, we're going to go to Germany and a partnership between BR and the Science Media Center. So we should have Marco and Meik standing by to tell us about their Science in Context Fact Boxes project.
Yes, hello. Welcome to Science in Context. over the last few months, so the last 6 months during the JournalismAI Collab, we thought a lot about how we could automatically generate fact boxes on climate change using artificial intelligence. Yeah, as Jane mentioned, this is a Science Media Center for which Meik is here. He's the team lead of research and development. And the BR AI and Automation Lab, for which I'm here. I'm a journalist and a software developer. So our starting point was that we thought that users and editors need more scientific background in daily news about climate change. So why is this? Because on the user side, you may have missed some important part of the discussion. You may lack some terms or some concepts, some context. And so you might have a hard time understanding the article you're reading, you are reading right now. On the other side, as an editor, we as a public broadcaster, we have a lot of regional news coverage. So people who report on the effects of climate change, like a flood or heavy rain events, are usually experts for the area and not for climate change itself. So we thought about how we can bring the expertise on climate change to those who are actually reporting. And we thought that fact boxes would be the best way to do this, because fact boxes have one big plus for us. You only have to write them once. So you write the fact box and you can add it to many, many articles. Also, as an editor, you don't have to research it in depth, so you don't have to have a really based understanding of the complex topics like climate change. But all you have to do is to find the correct fact box you have to match to your article. Then you can add it to it and help your readers understand what's going on. Also, from the reader side again, you can choose for yourself if you really need this background information. You can just skip it. And if you need this background information, you don't have to Google it. You don't have to look it up on Wikipedia. You have it right on the site. You don't have to leave it. You can just consume it and then go on reading the article. So how did we tackle the problem of automatically generate fact boxes?
The SMC has collected hundreds of statements from scientists on climate change issues. To put this knowledge from automated fact boxes, we first had to put it into a format that enables automatic selection of fact bits that are relevant for a given fact box. But fact bits alone do not make a fact box. So we tried to create an easily readable text for the selected facts with the help of the language model GPT-3. It was difficult to use the knowledge collected by the Science Media Center for fact boxes because it was only stored as plain text. To make this knowledge more accessible, we have represented it in a knowledge graph. Knowledge graphs are excellent for structuring knowledge and making it usable for different applications. In addition, we extracted handcrafted propositions from statements to abstract from the original context of use.
Yes, so now we have those propositions and we want to match them against the article we are currently writing. So how do we do this? We have kind of a mathematical representation of the article, and we have this same mathematical representation of the propositions. And all we have to do now is to look for the most similar representations and take the 2, 3, 4 maybe, which matches best, which are the most similar. And then we pass them, in our case, to a language model, GPT-3, which writes a statistically more appealing fact box out of it. Then we take this fact box and move it back into the article to which we want to edit. During this process, we had some key learnings which I want to present to you. I think the first one, if we're going to develop the system further, it's going to be a hybrid system. Hybrid system means that there will always be a human in the loop, because humans must be in charge of the final result. Humans must be in charge of what is being published, and humans are responsible for the factual correctness of the actual fact box. Also, we learned that GPT-3 may not be the best match for the use case we have, because it lacks the possibility to really finely control the output. And on a more positive side, the modularity of the knowledge graph which the SMC has developed and the modularity of a fact box are really, really useful, because it makes it usable in many use cases, and as it makes it reusable in many use cases. So this was a quick dive into what we have experienced, what we have learned in the last 6 months. So if you want to know more about it, you see here the link to our project report. Also, I will post it into the comments, and yeah, thank you much for having us, and I'm looking forward to answer your questions.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Mike. And I'm really pleased to hear that humans are still part of this and that journalists are still needed. It's kind of one of those fears, isn't it, that journalists have, that somehow automation means their jobs won't exist anymore. Let's get our Norway team back in the room, and we can kind of have a bit more discussion about both of the projects, really. I suppose I wanted to stick with the sort of human theme, because a lot of our discussion at the start of the collab and throughout is that we need to keep both the journalists and the audience in mind when we're designing, to make sure that we're actually designing a solution for a problem that exists that our journalists are going to be prepared to work with. And I know, Ketil and Gaute, a lot of your project was about testing. Is there something more you can tell us about how the micro fact boxes sort of went down, both with journalists and with the audience? I think you're on mute, Ketil.
Sorry, apologies. Yes, we went through this expected process where you start identifying a problem, and then you start dreaming up all these kind of fancy solutions to that challenge. So we started with going the opposite direction of where we ended by actually changing the way journalistic text is written, doing it in atoms and enriching it with metadata and so on. But we quickly realized that the team that we had on the collab was more on the journalistic and design heavy side, so we wanted to try something different and enriching already existing pieces. That was what we deemed to be feasible. So starting with that, it was all about researching the challenge and attempting a few different solutions. And doing this all the while we were also developing prototypes. So it was different paths we went down the same time. And it was also really interesting to see how we went from quite a complicated setup to something which many would probably say would be quite simple. And it is really, it's not magic, but often it's the small steps that takes you forward in big leaps in the future by adding ingredients. And that's something I know you are eager to talk more about, Gaute, how AI will be a bigger part of this mix eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, to go back to kind of this human involvement as well, or the journalist involvement, even though we want to automate a lot, it's as you said, Jane, it's really about giving control both to the reader in this project and also to the journalist, and that they are actually in charge of selecting, okay, which entities should be enriched with explanations. Sometimes it might not be relevant to have all the words in the text, so kind of finding this nice flow of manual selection, but also adding more spice to the front end. So say that we can weigh words if they're more difficult, and looking at the most popular searches, etc., to build more intelligence into it.
And I think that sort of leads us quite nicely to Marco and Mike's experience with GPT-3, which was that it actually couldn't really achieve what you wanted to in the way that you wanted it.
Yes, yeah, we were quite optimistic when we started. So yeah, we had the hopes that we just can take 2 or 3 of those propositions, put it into the language model, and then get some nice text out of it. This was partly the case, but we experienced some problems. So there's an effect called hallucination, which means that the language model just starts making up facts, and sometimes it's really easy to spot those, but also sometimes it's really hard. So it's making up like very specific numbers, which are hard to fact check for people who want to publish this. Who want to publish this fact box afterwards.
I thought that was really interesting for me to read about that the language model was making up its own facts, which then actually gave you another fact-checking headache.
Yeah, and I think it's really tiresome for journalists to fact check and automation. And I think you use facts to induce some kind of trust. And if you couldn't trust the system that generated the fact boxes, it's very bad and very tiresome for journalists. So I think it's better to have a very high quality metadata base like a knowledge graph that you can use to generate fact boxes. And that maybe in the future we will have language models that are better in steering along the facts than we have today. And maybe in 10 years we could use a language model. But I think the state of the art right now is not there yet.
And I know you had a sort of tried and tested workflow already around fact boxes. So you were also able to kind of product test what you had done with the group responsible for making the fact boxes. And their feedback was what you said, that they just couldn't, they didn't want to have to fact check what had been automated.
Yes, pretty much. So as a BR, the team from the archive is responsible for writing the fact boxes, which are later added to the articles which are published on BR24. And yes, that was pretty much the feedback of them, that if we give them the fact boxes processed by GPT-3, it tends to make more work than it would be just writing the fact boxes themselves. But a really interesting side effect, what we mentioned, what we discovered, was that it was really helpful for them to just give them the raw output, because they saved a lot of time on researching the initial facts from which they then could go on. And also on the other side, as Meik has mentioned, the knowledge graph is a reliable and easy controllable system. So you can be pretty sure that that's correct, what comes out of the knowledge graph, since the SMC ensures this. And then we gave it to our editors, which then can save time on the research phase and go onwards from this point on. And so we have also the human in the loop, as I've mentioned. So there's a human being who checks the factual correctness of the fact box.
We will move shortly onto some questions, but I know we just wanted to have a word about where the kind of both the projects go next, because this is absolutely not the end of the story. This is really just the start, isn't it? So Ketil and Gaute, do you want to pick up on where you feel you will go next with the micro fact box?
Yeah.
Will you like to start, Gaute?
Yeah, sure. So definitely the next step now is, as you saw briefly, the front end for the journalist, and looking at how can we make integrating microfacts and getting suggestions of words to use to get that into the CMS system, or find ways to test this with a live audience, and also collect feedback from readers in terms of, does this actually help them, and does it create more engagement for the article, looking at more evergreen content, as well as both Meik and Marco is looking at here. It's not like you create one fact box and then you can never use it again. So I think there's a lot of the automation around fact boxes that can push this project further as well.
Yeah, so there's a kind of automation in the creation, but actually in the continual use of them. And actually, as you say, once you've created them, you have a module that you can then reuse. And that was a big part of what you were trying to achieve. And I think obviously definitely the same for you, Marco and Meik, with the context around climate change. It was the idea of having something which was reusable.
Yes, pretty much. This is, as I've mentioned, I think one of the big pluses of having a fact box that it saves a lot of work and a lot of time in the long term. And to say how the project is going to develop further is that we will continue working together with the archive team. And as I've mentioned, so we have found a good starting point from which we can go on. So we will elaborate with the editorial team from the archive how a workflow can look like that actually saves them time and makes the work easier by providing them facts to an article or to a topic they want to write the fact box about. And maybe Meik, if you want to say something about how the development of the knowledge graph continues.
We actually have a question about knowledge graphs as well, so it might be a good point to bring that in. Let me just so this is a question from Magnus, who asks, have you been working with knowledge graphs before, and was it kind of a difficult thing to get started with, and do you have future plans around using knowledge graphs?
Yeah, it was our first prototype using knowledge graph technology. And I think we started with a basic, very basic knowledge graph using custom technology, custom programming, not using the big semantic architectures that are out there. But we will do this in the next year. So we will try to transform all of our knowledge we have collected as a Science Media Center into a knowledge graph that uses semantic technologies. And that will be a big endeavor, but it will be really important to have this knowledge in the structured way and to use ontologies and taxonomies that are standard and standardized and could be understood by other people. So it's work for the next year, and I'm very excited about this. And because we have lots of knowledge collected as a Science Media Center, not only statements from experts, but we have lots of fact sheets that are very, very rich with knowledge regarding different topics. We have press briefings that are transcribed, where we could use transformation techniques to get the knowledge into a knowledge graph. So there's much to do in the next year.
Yeah, that's a big job. So structuring essentially all of the information that you have at the Science Media Center. So I think we know what your next steps are and where the project will be going. We have a question which is, I think, for the Norwegian team. Let me find it. Okay, so this is from Berch. Did I understand correctly that you used a kind of lexicon lookup to provide definitions in the articles? If so, did you run into problems with word sense disambiguation? A difficult word for me to say.
Yes,
yes.
definitely.
Okay.
And that's also part of the beauty of this project, that we kind of overlook those kind of difficulties in the initial phase. So it's more about validating the concept, and then what we will come to next is refining this. There is a smart machine learning algorithm working under the hood here, which Gaute and his team is developing. And that will be trained. And also, I think for us, it's also important that we will keep human in the loop to verify suggestions through the CMS that Gaute showcased, and let the AI get better and better at suggesting the difficult words that should be highlighted, and also work with ambiguity, and make sure that it's increasingly more spot on.
Exactly.
And there is a question from Chris, which I think is maybe to both teams actually, which is really how can your solution be integrated with existing journalism tools? So I don't know who wants to pick that up first. I mean, Gaute, you've talked a little bit about CMS and integrating it into workflows. So maybe for you to pick up initially, and then I'll go across to Marco and Meik.
Yeah, sure. So there's definitely different ways to go forward with integrating with different CMSs. But I think for the beginning phase now, we'll probably use HTML output, maybe iframe, or looking at kind of the simple integrations in the beginning. But there is kind of a huge scope here where it could be anything from a script that you integrate to a web browser plugin that you can use over the CMS. So here I think it depends on the best response we get, and obviously getting this to testing, and which has kind of been our focus all over this project to see if things can actually work and create value.
Yeah, because you want journalists to use it. So I guess how you integrate it, what functionality you give it depends on the workflow, how you're using it, what the journalists will take to. Marco and Meik, for you, integrating it into the workflow at BR?
Yeah, I think how well or how easily the integration works mainly depends on the CMS in this case. So if you have a more flexible CMS, it's more easy to integrate it. And we have decided this. So everything we develop as an API first. So the output is usually some kind of structured machine readable content. And then so right now we don't have a web front end because we are we are not convinced that the state we are reaching right now is production ready. But if we are at a certain point, you can easily choose if you want to use a web front end, for example, in front of the API, or directly integrate it into the CMS or the CMSs we use. And I think that's our way to tackle this problem.
Yeah, because I guess the integration into the sort of existing tools is almost the final stage in the process, isn't it? You have to have something that you're ready to present in that way, which I think you're both saying you're at different stages with that, and that's very much the next step for the projects. There's a lot of interest in seeing if there are demos of both of the projects. So is there a sort of a live demo of micro Factbox that people can see first off?
Yes, it is. And if we can share the link in the chat or as an overlay, that will be great. Because there is a live demo, and you can actually check how this will work for the end users of the micro Factbox experiment. So there is the link. And we will also probably share it in the chat, so you could just click on it.
Yeah, don't all go off and watch it yet. Wait till we're finished.
Yes.
Marco and Meik, do you have a prototype demo that people can see of your Science in Context Factboxes?
Yes, as I've mentioned, not yet, because we can't guarantee that that the output is actually correct, and we think that it would send kind of a wrong signal to possible users. Mm-hmm. And we only want to publish software, and we only want to publish systems which meet our quality goals.
But you have the blog that you have written is really detailed actually, and goes through all of the stages. So I'd recommend people read that. Because it goes through a lot more detail of what you've presented to us today. So absolutely, if you're interested, I'd encourage you all to take a look at that. We have time for a few more questions. If anyone has them, I'm just going back through, make sure I haven't missed anything. We have a follow-up question from Magnus, which is, I think, for Ketil and Gaute. Do you use wikidata same as? So do you use wikidata in the same way, I guess is what Magnus is asking.
Sorry, I think it's a follow-up about knowledge graphs. if I'm
Sorry.
right.
Thank you,
because,
Mike.
because Wikidata is one of the really big knowledge graphs
Apologies.
existing. And of course, already in the prototype, we are using, we have a level of concepts that are related to statements and to propositions. And those concepts are linked to Wikidata. So there's a kind of relation, same as the concepts we are using. And I think in the final knowledge graph in the next year, there will be many more links to existing knowledge graphs like Wikidata or other big knowledge graphs.
Okay, so this is about taking your work and linking it up with other knowledge graphs when you have finished your massive piece of work of actually structuring your own data. Okay, we have no more questions, so I will just wrap up and thank all of you for a really, really interesting session and fantastic work. And it feels like these are both projects that are going to continue, and it will be great to kind of follow and find out what happens to them, in the next year. So thank you so much, everybody, and I will let right on cue Mattia come back just to round up and close this particular session.
I heard I was needed. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, Jane, thank you so much for the moderation of the session, and Marco, Meik, Gaute, Ketil, this was fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing your work with us, and I encourage everybody to check all the links that have been shared on the chat on this YouTube channel during the live. Just to say, it's been a pleasure working with you all during the past 6 months. So I want to thank again all the speakers and Jane for this great session. Here we wrap it up. So we are about to really getting very close to the end of this festival. There is just one more session coming up later today. So just as a reminder, tune in again at 2:30 p.m. GMT, so London time, if you want to follow the final session on the future of AI in journalism with a spectacular panel with speakers from the US, from the Nordics, from India, and our own Charlie moderating from here in London. We're looking forward to this very final and exciting session to wrap up the 2021 JournalismAI Festival. So for me now, there's nothing else to do than to thank again all the speakers for this great session, and see you later.